Hey, it's Cavallo from datingfire.com. Welcome back. You know, if you're looking for signs of a toxic relationship, you probably suspect you've got some unhealthy patterns going on. Am I right or am I right here? I mean, you may want to ensure that your relationship stays healthy. You got to recognize the signs of a toxic relationship, and you can avoid a ton of problems that people run into in relationships. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to give you 21 toxic relationship signs and how to fix them. And of course, this show is brought to you by my wonderful introduction, which is to say, make sure you do the big three. Number one, like and subscribe. Why not? This is good stuff. You can always use good dating and relationship advice. Number two, make sure you turn on the reminders, the notifications bell right next to the button. And number three, if you have a particular video you want me to make, leave a comment down in the section below. I mean, let's face it, almost every single person will have a bad relationship at some point in their life. We learn from the bad ones so that we can get better and have a good one when we find somebody that's worth it, right? You might find yourself arguing with your boyfriend over and over and over again. You might find yourself caught in a cycle of breaking up and coming back to him over and over again. Now, this may not be a toxic relationship, but it's something you should be watching out for. Which brings us to the first and most important question. What is a toxic relationship? Well, the simplest definition of a toxic relationship is this one that I whipped up. A toxic relationship is where your feelings of self-worth and belief in your value is damaged. Now, any relationship that makes you feel less about yourself should be considered toxic, okay? However, if you already have self-esteem issues, self-worth issues, or problems to begin with, it may not be the relationship that's at fault. It's probably also better if you maybe avoid romantic relationships if you're trying to work on yourself, or if you're trying to make up for some feelings of inadequacy or some self-esteem stuff you got to take care of. Look, not everybody should be in a relationship right this minute. However, we all feel entitled to a relationship with somebody, and there's no reason why you can't have love in your life. But you also have to attend to the personal issues, or you're going to constantly need help. Now, the truth is that your relationship might be toxic because of a few factors. Number one, he might be toxic, someone who just isn't ready or capable to have a good relationship. You might have a bit of toxic going on in your life right now. The dynamic between you and him might be toxic. You might be okay people on your own, but you're just a bad combination. Your timing could also be off, and you're just fighting against the impossible is creating a toxic situation. Now, another important distinction is the difference between a toxic relationship and an abusive relationship. A toxic relationship affects your self-esteem and adversely affects your emotional health and well-being. An abusive relationship is much, much worse. It's kind of like a compressed version of a toxic relationship. It not only affects your self-esteem, but it could result in physical and mental harm. That's why you got to do something about it if you suspect you're in one. All right, so let's jump into the signs you're in a toxic relationship. Sign number one, you don't have a say. Ultimately, in any mature relationship, you should have the right to participate, meaning that this isn't the 1800s anymore. Women they should be participating in the relationship just as much as the man is, okay? But if you find your relationship is not honoring your participation, meaning that the big decisions are made, but you aren't there a part of them, that's an issue. He should value your opinions and ideas every bit as his own, especially when it comes to big decisions. Sign number two, nothing is private. If your boyfriend tends to go through your correspondence, your phone, he looks through your private stuff, there's no real boundary there, this shows a really unhealthy boundary. It also might show some possessiveness and overly jealous behavior. And it's extremely toxic if you can't have your privacy within your relationship. Remember, this is something that you define for yourself. You set the terms of your own level of comfort within a relationship. Sign number three, lies, lies, lies. Let's be real. When your relationship has dishonesty and lying in the core of it, it's definitely a toxic relationship. Honesty is essential for healthy relationships. That shouldn't come as a surprise. You have to be able to communicate without deception. If your relationship is based on the lying, it can only end up one way: toxic. Now, I got a ton of these signs. If you want to get the whole article, you can go on over to datingfire.com. That'll bring you right to the blog, and you can check out the article there. I got to move forward to sign number 5. None of your problems gets resolved. That's one of the key indicators of a toxic relationship. It's when you keep coming back to the same problems over and over again with him. If you don't feel like you ever resolve anything, that shows that you're both probably sweeping a lot of your issues under the rug. You may give them lip service and talk a little bit about them, but there's no real change. You have to be able to work towards a resolution for your bigger issues, especially if you don't see your needs getting met or if you can't meet his needs. Sign number 6, passive-aggressive indirect communication. You may have heard about passive-aggressive behavior in relationships. It goes something like this. You do something he doesn't like. Instead of bringing this up in a healthy way, he says something like this: fine, whatever. And then he proceeds to give you the silent treatment. You might even ask him, what's wrong? And what does he say to that? Nothing. I'm not mad. When he clearly is, right? You might have even done this a few times yourself, right? It's kind of the stereotype of women to often be the more passive-aggressive in terms of communication. Look, nobody has the monopoly on this behavior, all right? When somebody acts like this, they're just expressing their anger indirectly and then shutting down so that no repair can be made. And then it becomes a strategy of who can control the other person. If you notice that the reality of your relationship is often denied like this, the relationship can rapidly spiral out of control. It's definitely toxic. And I'm sneaking in this as sign number 7, but it's kind of its own category. Physical or verbal abuse. There's no two ways about it. If you are verbally or physically abused, it's toxic. It's even worse than toxic. It's a deal breaker. Get out of the relationship right now. There is no fixing it or saving it. Sign number 9 is you're both keeping the score way too much. Look, being in a relationship means that you essentially have to be on the same team. You not only have to fight for what you want together, you have to choose to do this every single day. You got to fight for your team, not for yourselves. If you find that both of you are keeping a score, a hidden score with each other, that's a sure sign of toxicity. For example, you know exactly how many fights you've won, or you know exactly how many times he's called you that particular name you don't like, or he's keeping a running score of how much sex he got this month versus how many arguments. You see what's going on, right? No scores. Sign number 13, constant jealousy. Look, jealousy is another evil force in relationships. If you find that you're constantly jealous of him or he's constantly jealous of you, this is a toxic situation. It shows that there's very little trust between you and a ton of insecurity about where you stand with each other. You have to look at the core of your jealousy issues. Is this something you experience in your relationships a lot? If it's just him, then you have to get to the core of his insecurities as well before jealous emotions start to dominate your relationship. Sign number 14, constant cheating. Look, even worse is when you or him have a problem staying faithful to each other and the relationship. If you're unable to foster a healthy monogamous relationship, you should probably either not date or agree to date other people. When someone cannot stay true to their primary relationship, they're attending to other ego and self-esteem issues, okay? Obviously, this can't create a healthy relationship, and the constant cheating will only make it just a torrid battleground. Sign number 15, he's a control freak. If a guy likes to control too much of your relationships, you'll start to feel the pressure. And not only this, but if he needs all that control, well, that says a lot about his security and his self-confidence. Controlling men create dysfunctional, toxic relationships. Period. And you must also watch out for your desire to control him in the relationship too. Yes, women often have that impulse. Sign number 18, isolation. One of the ways you lose focus of balance and the outside world is when your relationship isolates you from everyone else. It's tempting to just hibernate with your boyfriend, but you have to stay social as well. You gotta stay connected to your friends. So watch out for isolation into the relationship. Stay social and connected. Sign number 19, intimidation and fear tactics. This is borderline abuse. In fact, in many cases, it's just plain abuse. Your relationship is a place for love and openness. If you find that your partner is using fear and intimidation to control you, that's toxic. If you feel like you're being held as an emotional hostage, you need to seek help. Escape that, no matter what. Sign number 20, name-calling, threats, including possible physical harm. Now, of course, these are the tools of emotional intimidation, and these three are a sure sign that you are not only being controlled by your partner, these indicate emotional abuse at the very least. It's up to you to keep a very firm and healthy boundary for yourself and defend your right to a healthy connection. If you're noticing this kind of pattern, name-calling, threats, the fear of possible physical harm, you have to seek help. Sign number 21, you're watching a video about toxic relationship signs. I know this one should be the biggest indicator of all. I understand, you're probably just curious, right? You're here watching this wondering, is my relationship as bad as I think it is? You just want to know what the indicators might be. Well, maybe you just want to reassure yourself that you're in a good relationship. We all read movie reviews for movies we've already watched just to confirm our opinion of them, right? We've all done that. But if you're reading about the signs, or you're watching this video about signs of toxic relationships, that shows you've got a concern. And if you find that you do have a few of these signs with him, you should be thinking about how to work on your relationship. Now, I also have to point out that if your relationship is truly toxic, you might just want to forgo the work and leave. Yes, leave. Get the hell out of there. Look, it may sound a little cold, but the best attitude for a woman is to dump more men than you keep. You'll learn how to be picky. You'll have a good frame of reference, being able to compare guys a lot better, and you'll also avoid this whole scarcity mindset that you're never going to find somebody. It's not hard to find a relationship, okay? And it is hard to get out of a bad relationship, but it can be nearly impossible to fix a toxic relationship. So how do you do it? How do you fix a toxic relationship? Well, first you got to know whether or not it's a toxic relationship and if it's worth saving. How do you know if it's worth saving? There's a couple of signs for that. First is he's got to have a willingness to work on it. Both of you have to have that. Next is everybody has to take responsibility for their part in the relationship. That includes you. Stop the blame storming. One of the most obvious indicators is when both sides resort to doing nothing but blaming each other. And you can call for help. That's a big sign right there. If you can seek help or ask for help, that's a good sign that you want to do the work. Now, when you're ready to move forward, there are some steps you can take, like tapping into your compassion. Don't just assume the worst from your partner. Engage your heart in this whole process. Make a vow to work on your communication and never stop. That's critical if you want to actually reach him. And make sure you're accountable. Both sides have to own up to their responsibilities. You have to be willing to point out when either one of you is not living up to what you said you were going to do. And of course, let go of the past. Don't deny it, but also don't hold on to the grievances that don't move you forward. While a toxic relationship can be saved, I want to warn you against clinging to hope about it constantly. Usually what happens is that a toxic relationship has at least one toxic person in it. Oh yeah, this is a big one. Write this one down. It's not that the relationship is toxic, it's that there's a toxic person in it. And the dynamic between you has become toxic. This means that the person has to change before the relationship will. Remember that it's a short step to go from toxic to abusive. You have to watch your relationship boundaries and keep yourself healthy and keep those boundaries in place no matter what. It's really easy to get addicted to a relationship. I know you put in all that effort, you don't want to walk away from it, but you must do that. Unfortunately, what I see are women every day and women that I coach every day who can't walk away from these relationships. There are men out there that are toxic, yes, and there are women who are toxic as well. And if you feel like you might be one, go seek some help. But you know what? Instead of chasing the unattainable, why not put your energy where it belongs? Why not, if you think you can fix it, why not put your energy there? Now, if you'd like to know what to do next, I've got something just for you. This is perfect for you. It's called my Relationship Roadblock Quiz. Go over to the link you see below me here. That's right, datingfire.com/helpmecarlos. That's datingfire.com/helpmecarlos. Take the quiz. You're going to find out what's going on in your relationship and what your next best step is, where to go, how to fix it. Go on over and try it out. Again, it's datingfire.com/helpmecarlos. And of course, before you run away, do the big three: like and subscribe. Hey, you got this far, you must like it. I mean, why not? And of course, turn on notifications so you know when my next video comes out next week. And number 3, leave your questions and comments below, or if you just want to suggest a video. Hey, this is Carlos Cavallo from datingfire.com/helpmecarlos. I'm here to help you. Go on over and find out what your relationship needs. I'll be back next week. As always, live and love with passion.